I don't think there is any doubt that the status quo of the 2024 college football playoff is a big, big story. And one, frankly, I'll be honest with you, I don't understand and I don't agree with it. We've talked a lot about the structure of the college football playoff on this show. The powers that be have essentially agreed to leave it as is, which means you will still have a 12-team playoff. You will still have the 6th highest ranked college conference champions in, and then 6 at-large bids. And what this tells you is the College Football Playoff Committee did not want to do the heavy lifting that was required in a very short space in time to do the right thing, which is making sure that the top 12 teams in the country play for the championship of college football. It is incredibly disappointing. But, Jake, was this the right thing to do to leave it as is for another year?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's difficult is, to your point, like, there was a lot of heavy lifting, but I have to agree, like, we're just left in this scenario with this solution, leaving it the way it is for another year. We're left to see more mediocrity in the college football playoff. And when I say more mediocrity, what I mean is a bunch of these top-end teams getting a free pass on their schedule. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to change the model to, the 5-7 setup that everyone always references, or we're going to change it to this new setup that basically is going to prioritize strength of schedule. I don't care who your name is or what you did last year or who your coach is or what your roster looks like. We're going to measure your strength of schedule. And so if you were to do that, the Big Ten would have some problems, right? The ACC would have some problems. And I think we find ourselves in sort of this gray area with scheduling because, again, if we go strength of schedule, a G5 can make a really strong case that, hey, we played a really difficult schedule, the most difficult schedule that we could play. But when you take that, again, I always reference, a San Diego State. When you take San Diego State's schedule, let's say they played the best that they could, and you compare that to an SEC schedule. The SEC schedule, while very easy for Georgia, is still a better schedule than the hardest G5 schedule out there. And that's the problem in college football right now. So I look at the playoff setup, and we stay in the 6-6 format. And all I have to say is the more things change, the more they stay the same. The top dogs are going to keep raking in the money because they're going to keep getting a free pass on schedule. And the difficult part is I don't know when this exactly is going to change. When we're going, what is going to be the solution that everyone at the table can agree on? Because that's the difficult part, as we always talk about with the college football playoff. The SEC and the big dogs want it a certain way. They want to keep control.
Right.
They want to keep dominating. But the G5 obviously wants change. The G5 wants to change the model.
Yeah, I think if you look at the FPI, which is pretty much the gold standard, it is how ESPN models quality football teams and who the best football teams are in college football. You look at these names and you look at the conference affiliations. I mean, you don't see a whole lot of anything outside of the current P5. And there's a reason for that, right? You look at the win out percentage. What are the chances at the top there that Ohio State's going to win out? 27%. Or, 6 wins. Look how many 100% bowl eligible teams there are there. Is this the almighty? Is this the grail or the Bible of who gets in and who gets out? Certainly not. But when you look at this, there's a reason that the San Diego States or the Mountain West or the AACs, the Sun Belts of the world are not represented here because they don't play the caliber of opponent and they don't have the built-in, advantage of being in a Power 5 conference. Now, is that the haves and the have-nots or the big dogs trying to push down the little guy? Yeah, sure, maybe there's some of that there. But the thing that's so remarkable to me is what do you see here with the Big Ten? Well, what I see here is 2 Big Ten teams towards the top, and one of them's not Michigan. And I think there is some justice in ESPN's FPI because Michigan does not play anybody. They do not play a single team of note until Penn State and Ohio State at the end of the line. That, to me, is a major, major problem. And I'd also note that they are only given a 3.8% chance to win out on their schedule. That's a big deal. Now, why is Ohio State at the top? Because they beat a really solid Notre Dame defense who only decided to have 10 players on the field. We covered that yesterday. My point is that trauma has not gone away from me. But my point is I'm not going to sit here and tell you I believe the G5s deserve some huge seat at the table. I don't believe that it should be the top 6 conference champions. I believe in 2024 it should have been the top 4 and 8 at-large bids. That's what I think. And I think you could easily have had the Power 4 conference champions and the highest ranked G5 conference champion, right? That puts you at 5, and that gives you your 5-7 model. And you have 5 conference champions and you have 7 at large. But in no way, shape, or form is it better for college football to have 6 conference champions make the college football playoff. That is not leveling the playing field. That is not delivering a seat at the table. Because the other thing that stands out to me so clearly is when I look at the best G5 conferences right now, I mean, clearly, I think the Mountain West is in that conversation as the best G5. And I'm not sure who it would be instead. Probably the AAC. Very likely the AAC. But, Memphis going out 3-0. And then losing to Missouri does not help the AAC because it tells you that 3-0 was worthless. But then the Sun Belt and Conference USA and the MAC and come on, man. Are we talking about the best 12 teams, or are we talking about making sure it's the little guy, even though he sucks and he can't make it, got to give him a shot? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this. That 4 and 8 setup that you were talking about, that assumes that the Pac-12 in its new situation, if you will, assuming it's still alive moving forward next year, it's assuming that the Pac-12 is going to keep its college football playoff auto bid. And what's unfortunate is I think in college football we just want to go with whatever's on a piece of paper. We just want to go with, okay, well, the bylaw says that a power conference has 2 years to get back on its feet, even though if the Pac-12 and the Mountain West merge, you can make a very strong case that is not a Power 5 conference in terms of talent and, competition and just across the board, right? I mean, we all agree that the Mountain West is not a power conference for a reason. Now, it's a damn good Group of 5 conference, for sure, the best, like we just said. But if the College Football Playoff Committee would operate in the sense of, hey, what's best for the college football playoff? How do we create an environment that breeds competition at the highest level instead of just what your record says? Because that's the true issue in college football. We're all chasing 10, 11, 12, and 0. We're not chasing 9-3, but a super hard schedule. That's the problem with college football and the college football playoff.
And I think we all love Cinderella.
Yeah.
I think that it is clear to me that a lot of what we are seeing in these college football playoff conversations is strictly based on the fact that we feel like the underdog should have an unequal opportunity in their favor, unequal in their favor. They should have more of an opportunity. I just don't think that's the case. And if we're looking at the best G5 conference, it's probably the Sun Belt, right? Where everybody but one, and I want to say that it is the directional Mississippi Golden Eagles are the only team in that conference that doesn't have 2 wins. Hey, that's great. But does that mean that, your 4-0 James Madison Duke should be in the college football playoff? No, it does not. Absolutely it does not. Are you telling me that Texas State beating Baylor all of a sudden means that Texas State deserves a seat at the table? No, it does absolutely not deserve a seat at the table. And the part that's going to frustrate people is if you look at the bottom half of the top 25 and you say to yourself, well, let's look at who number 13 is right now. It's LSU. But look at number 12. It's Alabama. Do you want Texas State or do you want Alabama? Do you want Utah or do you want Texas State?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want, like these lower end G5 teams in the college football playoff instead of Oklahoma and North Carolina, who are 14th and 15th? Because that's who's going to get bumped. It's gonna be this situation because you're having 6 conference champions that now you're going to have to pick 6 at large, and you cannot tell me that the college football playoff committee is going to pick 6 P5 teams. I'm not buying that. And at that point, it'll be 6 P4 teams if everything remains equal.
Right.
It'll be 6 P4 teams. Are you really telling me that all 6 of those are going to be from P4s?
No.
I don't buy that for a second.
I mean, I just don't think that, again, what everyone forgets is that obviously the group of 5 schools have, numbers on the Power 5 and have a lot of voices that have input at the table. The problem is that you can't go and beat the Power 5 schools. And that's the true issue here. That's the solution that we have to find in college football. How do we say, okay, we're not trying to put too much credit into the Cinderella story, but at the same time, we need to make sure that if you do X, you get Y, with Y being a college football playoff spot at the end of the year. So what is X? Because right now it's highest ranked conference champion. Right? So okay, great. Hey, San Diego State won the Mountain West, but where are they ranked amongst the group of 5? That's the issue. So even if you win your conference, it's not necessarily indicative of getting in. So that's what I'm saying is, like, we need to prioritize making difficult schedules. We need to find a way to say, okay, Nick Saban, okay, Kirby, okay, Jim Harbaugh, right? Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Hey, how are we going to put together a schedule that's a lot more difficult? Now, the good news is the Big Ten's about to get a lot better, right? The good news is that the Big Ten is about to add 2 teams that make the schedule much deeper, that make the conference a lot more competitive.
But who's going to pay the price for the seat at the table the G5 is going to get? Is it going to be Washington, Oregon, USC? Is it going to be UCLA? Is it going to be Penn State, Michigan, or Ohio State? Because there's not a chance in the world I am going to advocate for Appy State over Ohio State, over some. You cannot, and maybe you can, and in the comments section, let's do it. I don't believe that there is a case to be made that a more compelling matchup exists between a G5 and a G5 for the national championship.
Well, no, and I think that the person that sacrifices, or the school, not the person, like the university that sacrifices, is the less relevant, low-end top 25 team. That's who I think is going to pay the price. A team that could say, hey, we deserve a spot, but the committee disagrees because you have a little bit smaller of a following. Because, of course, hey, it's UNC versus Ohio State to get in, let's say. Well, Ohio State's getting the nod. Ohio State's got a bigger following in football. Ohio State's a better brand in football. Ohio State's been in the college football playoff
Ohio
before.
State has more talented, well-developed players who have played in bigger games of consequence than any G5. It's this year why I believe Georgia is one of the most overrated teams in the country.
Yeah.
They have struggled against what is a pathetically weak schedule, yet they're going to be pushed and pushed. It's why Michigan in the AP top 25 continues to get the benefit of the doubt as a number 2 team in the country over Texas, who's got wins at Baylor, who's got wins over Alabama at Alabama, but yet Michigan is ranked ahead of Texas because we have to have the nameplate. So during the season, we want the nameplate, like in the AP poll. But then we get to the point where we need to decide who the champion of college football is, and we don't want the nameplate anymore. We don't want the teams with the best players. We don't want the teams with the fastest, strongest, more advanced player who are clearly a cut above a lot of G5 teams. We don't want them to have extra access. We want Cinderella to have extra access, even though no G5 in recent memory, and I'm talking about you, Cincinnati, has been able to produce in the college football playoff since the college football playoff was instituted.
Yeah.
You just don't see it because it's very difficult to do. You get on the field against the big boys, the blue bloods, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the LSUs, the Oklahomas, the Texas. And I think Texas is probably no better example of this year than Texas. They're bigger, faster, and more well-coached than you are.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't matter what conference you play in. They're better than you are. Texas loses a game. Let's get crazy and say Texas loses 2 games. They're ranked 10th. And you're telling me that there's a case to be made that the Sun Belt champion should get in before Texas. It's
what are you talking about, man?
ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous to me.
And that's why I say, like, I think the Cinderella story vibes from bracketology and the basketball tournament
Oh, my God.
need to stay in the basketball tournament. Because, again, basketball and football are 2 different sports. Football is a physical game. The bigger man is typically going to win. And so when you get when you get David versus Goliath in football, Goliath is stomping David. David can't beat them with X's and O's the way you can in basketball.
To stop comparing college football and college basketball.
Yeah.
They are completely different. They could not be more different if we tried. It's just such a bad comparison. Cinderella in the NCAA tournament is what everybody wants because on a night in and night out basis in college basketball, there is talent and there is better coaching in the G5s than there is in the P5s on a regular basis. That does not happen in football.
No,
it does not, because the best, most talented, physically gifted players are all at the P5 level.
And by the way, the national championship of college basketball didn't exactly do great on TV. So when we talk about little guy playing big guy in the national championship game of whatever sport, in football, we want the big game. We wanted Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. We wanted Joe Burrow and LSU, right? We wanted Smoke and Joe after that game. That's what we want in football. Football is a huge stadium, 100,000 fans, big
10 million
sport.
people watching your game.
Yeah, right? Like, that's what football is.
I mean, and I think there is something to be said for that. Look at this viewership for Ohio State and Notre Dame. 10.5 million viewers, the most watched regular season college football game since 1993's Game of the Century, which also involved Notre Dame. And I cannot keep saying over and over and over again, if this is, what is it? Is it the best college football matchup, the 2 best teams, or the 12 best teams in 2024? Because that's really what we're talking about. Is it the 12 best teams? Is it making the most money? Is it bringing in the most viewers? Well, if it's the 12 best teams, the Sun Belt, the American, has no place in the conversation.
Facts.
If it's the most money, the G5 doesn't have a place in the conversation.
Facts.
And if it is, hey, I want the most viewers, I want 10.5, 20.5 million viewers, the G5 has no place in the conversation. We can't just give you a spot in the college football playoff because you won your conference, which is terrible. It's the same argument we have every year over the Big Ten.
Yep.
And now that's going to end after this year. It's the same argument we're going to have about Georgia this year. It's the same argument we're going to have about a lot of P5 teams in the college football unexpanded playoff era where we have this small college football playoff because they basically handicapped their way into the college football playoff. And you gave Cincinnati a shot, and that did not work out well.
Man, it was ugly.
Now we're going to expand that to 12, and we're thinking giving more Cincinnati-type schools a shot is a good idea.
Come on, man.
Not every college conference champion belongs in. They don't deserve it. Frankly, it's not fair to them to have them go up against the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Clemsons, the Florida States. It's not fair to put them up against the behemoths in the Big 12. It's not fair to the little guy, because all it does is further a narrative that the G5s are G5s for a reason. And again, I'm all for a G5 conference championship playoff thing. Knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. It's not disrespectful to the G5. It's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
You're trying to have it, and we can just keep going on and on. It is not dissimilar to, why do we not let true freshmen play 1 year in college football and go to the NFL? Why don't we let them do that? Well, because they're not physically capable of playing in the NFL at 18 years old. There's a lot of dudes in the G5 who have no business stepping onto a college football playoff field on any level of the college football playoff. And I know that there's a lot of people that that's going to upset. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that frustrates. But the reality is there's no undoing that. And I wish people, you look at this number right here. It's not a small number. It's 10.5 million people.
You know.
For a regular season September football game.
I'm for real.
10.5 million people watched.
Yeah.
That's not a little bit. That's a whole lot of it.
Yeah, and I love the concept. Like when we talk about, relationship with TV partners and the business of college football, dude, I love the concept of a college football playoff at the G5 level. Why do we not have that? Why are we trying to do square peg in a round hole? Why are we trying to force the G5s to play at the P5 level when it couldn't be more different talent-wise, resource-wise, recruiting? Like we're trying to do something that frankly just can't work. And in an era where it's ESPN and Fox and then CBS trying to, do deals and have carriage and do all this business, why are we not just adding more football games to the slate?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty remarkable to me that you have a grouping of people that believe that it's the college basketball discussion.
Yeah.
Like, if you truly believe that college basketball and college football is comparable, I just don't know how to. I think you're just being argumentative. I think you're trolling. Yeah. I truly do. If you're any kind of sports fan, you truly understand that there is a massive difference between the way people digest college football and the way they digest college basketball, and especially in college basketball where a whole bunch of fans only watch the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting 10.5 million for a regular season, early season matchup.
Yeah.
You're just not getting that. And I wish that it was far more easy to make people understand. Like a G5 trying to compete. Again, Texas State. Everybody's been this week thrown out, well, Texas State beat Baylor. You're talking about Baylor, who's not good. Baylor is one of the worst teams in the Big 12. I might argue the worst team in the Big 12.
Because it's garbage.
And you're saying that because Texas State beat Baylor, that's why we should have an expanded college football playoff with multiple G5 conference champions.
Yeah, the problem with that argument is just what you said. Baylor's not good. You want to throw Texas State into the group of the best college football teams in the country. Not Baylor. Respectfully, not Texas Tech.
Yeah, you can't do it.
You can't do it. There's levels to this game. And that's precisely the argument, is there's levels to this game. You've got P5 and you've got G5 for a reason. We should not be trying to bring up, little guy to play versus big guy only for little guy to get punched in the face repeatedly and lose 70-3. What's the point of that? TV partners are not happy with that. I can tell you right now, I'm not going to watch a game where Alabama's just kicking the daylights out of some G5 school. I'm not interested in that. That's not fun. It's not compelling. It's just not what it needs to be in the college football playoff setting. Because remember, don't forget, and I know it may seem obvious, but the college football playoff is about the best of the best deciding who is the very best. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So the idea that we want to throw Texas State or a school of that caliber into that mix is crazy. You can't do that.
And I don't think it's fair to do that. I think a lot of people think that there should just be this auto bid for Kent State if they win, if they win the Mid-American. Kent State should be in the college football playoff. What do you do with Kent State running into any of the top 15 teams in the country right now? I don't even know how you are you drawing. What did the NCAA tournament draw last year? 15 million people for the final? Are 15 million people tuning in to watch Kent State and Utah? Kent State and Florida, right? Like Kent State and anybody you want to point to. Are they tuning in to watch that? And the answer is no, they're not. And so not only are your ratings going to be bad, but Kent State is going to get physically manhandled in that kind of environment.
Yes.
And I
agree.
Yeah,
it's not
it's
fair.
rough.
It's not fair. It's not fair on a number of levels. It's not fair to your viewer. It's not fair to your TV partner, whoever that. In this case, for the college football playoff, it's ESPN. It's not fair to the two schools on both sides, right? Because again, what no one else wants to say is, dude, you're asking, college football playoff caliber team to get up for Kent State. Like you're asking us to go out and give you our best players, put our best players' health and ability on the line for this caliber of competition. So it's not fair to Kent State. It's not fair to whoever the P5 would be. It's not fair to your TV partners. And most of all, it's not fair to the viewer.
And I just point back to Memphis. Memphis is I think probably the best team in the American, and they're 3-1. They beat Bethune, Cookman, Arkansas State, Navy, and they lost to Missouri. The best team they saw. So I understand it's a philosophical discussion. It just is one of those things where I think you have to find your way to where you believe and where you come down on it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that you cannot, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I don't think you can ask G5s to end in that fashion.
Yeah.
I think they deserve better. I do believe the G5 should have a playoff, and whoever wins the G5, sure, you want to have them go on and, okay, maybe I could even see that, but I can't believe we're going to put the Kent States in that kind of situation. I just can't. I just can't see that. I cannot see it. All right, enough of us, more of you. Where do you guys come down on this? I am certain that there are Cinderella supporters in the viewership today, as there always is, and I'm going to hope that you've had your buckshot today. Bucked Up, buckedup.com. The best product, in my opinion, that we use from Bucked Up every single day is Buckshot. I have been on the Blue Raz run lately.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the watermelon and the Blue Raz. And the thing I love about Buckshot is it's 200 milligrams of caffeine, and it just gives you a nice little lift. You don't even really notice it physically, so you don't get spikes or you don't get, like these crashes. It just is nice. It feels good. You gain that clarity mentally. And I think the best example is like a pivot table or an Excel spreadsheet or a report or a big meeting that you have at 4 o'clock, but you're crashing because it's at the end of the day. No need to do that. About a half hour before, hit a Buckshot. It is that simple. You feel good. They taste good. And what I always tell you about Bucked Up makes good products with good ingredients that do exactly what they say they're going to do. I use their creatine. I use their whey protein. I use their collagen peptides. I use their Buckshot, their energy drink. It does exactly what it says it's going to do. So get your Buckshot today. Buckedup.com. Use the promo code Monty20. And see, U.S. Mail says, or just have a cup of coffee. Completely wrong. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Caffeine is not created equally.
Yeah.
The way it's delivered and the way that your body processes the combinations of ingredients that you put into your system, that's what makes it different. And when you have Buckshot that's got a bunch of brain food in it and caffeine, and it gives you that mental edge, You're never going to feel a crash. Like you pound a bunch of coffee and you feel a crash or you feel a spike or, hey, that better be stronger. Or God forbid, let me put a bunch of sugar and creamer and no, man, you don't need to do that. Get yourself buckshot. And you can avoid that afternoon cup of coffee to just get you through.
And by the way, I don't need to do a bunch of stuff to the coffee maker to take this. I don't need another cup. I don't need some paper filter, dude. This is right here, right now. Open it up and drink it, and you're done with it, and it works.
Yep.
Let's not forget efficiency.
All right, who's in the comments section today? Anthony gets the first one in for $2. Sunbelt will backfill the Pac-12's Power 5 spot.
Right.
I doubt that. I think if you look at I think there's a case to be made that the Sun Belt is having the best season, but there's not going to be a backfill of a Power 5 spot.
Yeah.
One, I think we really just don't know what's going on with the Pac-12 at this point and what Oregon State and Washington State and the Mountain West wind up doing, how that court battle turns out. Like, I think there's so much to be determined. But you look at all of the, whether it's the Mountain, you can go to the Sun Belt and the Georgia Southerns, the Appy States, the Arkansas State, Texas State. And again, every team in that conference except directional Alabama and Southern Mississippi have 2 wins. They're off to a really good start. No doubt about that. But it doesn't, like you look, again, Texas State probably has one of the best wins where they beat Baylor, Jackson State, and Nevada, and you lose to UTSA. So you're off to a good start there.
Yeah.
Right? But you look at James Madison, who's 4-0. James Madison's beaten Bucknell, Virginia, Troy, and Utah State. Those are... you look at that schedule like, wow, they beat Virginia. Virginia's not very good.
It's,
right?
by their
Utah
standard,
State's not very good.
That's not a bad schedule, but it's not some ridiculous schedule. It's not, it's just not.
No, and I don't think it's indicative of the fact that they belong in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
We're going to get it. There's no denying it. You're going to get the 6 highest ranked conference champions. And I think it's going to be ugly. Well, in a year and a half when all this happens, we're going to come back and have a conversation about it.
Yeah, hey, maybe the new free pass in the college football playoff for the big boys is playing some G5. Maybe that's what it is. I
don't think there's any doubt that that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. Casey Anthony got away with it for $5. Within 3 years, it'll be 16. Once they realize how much money they make with 12, then 16 is inevitable. At 16, the 2 best G5s is more palatable. At 16, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
But the bigger issue becomes, yes, you will make more money because you'll have more games on television. But the real money is in and again, and I'm probably wrong, and somebody will probably try to roast me for it, but I want to say that the NCAA tournament final was 14 million viewers. The college football playoff final was over 20 million viewers. So if we're at 20 million for the national championship of college football,
yeah,
think about in a larger format where you have bigger names. My guess is you're going to get more 20 million viewer games. You're going to get that on a regular basis.
Yeah,
is what I would guess. So I think that's where it's going to be interesting. How greedy do the P5s get? How greedy does the NCAA get? How greedy do the TV partners get? And how loud do they get about, and just because it's on the tip of my tongue, Kent State getting into the college football playoff?
Yeah.
When you could have had Alabama, when you could have had Ole Miss, when you could have had a bigger brand from a P4 that would have brought you a larger television audience.
Oh, and I think if you're the college football playoff committee, I think you need to be comparing the college football playoff in structure and in direction to, a professional sport playoff model. You need to get to a place where it's okay to have big boy versus crap team in the first round, right? Like we get that in the NBA all the time. We get a relevant playoff series in round one all the time. Nobody cares. We'll see you next round. That's all the time. But
Yeah.
for the college football playoff, that's fine because you get to check the G5 box and then we get to move along to the actual college football playoff. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I agree. 16 makes a lot more sense, but for now we're at 12. So they need to figure out how to make that work.
It's a very interesting debate because it's 100% on our level. It's 100% opinion.
Yeah.
We're not right. You're not wrong. I just think the mindsets, and I think a lot of it is depending on who your team is, right? Who your school is. Mine's Notre Dame. We're not getting in anyways because Marcus Freeman doesn't know how to count to 11. But yes, I'm still bitter. But my point is, I have real concern for G5 schools getting humiliated, getting embarrassed, because it just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And Tarrant County Pete said exactly what I said. Why don't we get real and give the G5 their own football playoff and champ and exclude them from the P4 playoffs? I don't even know that you need to exclude them. What I'm saying is you need the cream of the crop of the G5s. You need the very, very best. You're not going to get that. You are not going to get that with 6 conference champions. You're just not. If you have 4 from the P5, that you're going to put in 2 conference championship teams that hopefully can physically compete. And I'm sure at some point, at least I hope at some point, a G5 upsets one of the P5 teams that are there. I think it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you are again Kent State or Georgia Southern or South Alabama and you're going up against Georgia or any of the mid-table, the Alabamas, the mid-table Big 10 teams, imagine Oregon is a mid-table Big 10 team. Imagine Penn State. And you're asking Georgia Southern or whoever to go up against them. Man, that's an awful big ask. That is an awfully big ask.
Yeah.
Carson for $2. NCAA screwed this up. How many FBS teams and why? I think it became the BCS was just not a model that could be sustained. Nobody liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody likes the current model that's so restrictive. But nobody's ever going to be satisfied. I think we all need to understand that.
Yep.
Nobody's ever going to be happy with all of the things that we're seeing. It doesn't matter how you change the playoff. John Teal for $2. After Bama beat Cincy, they beat Ohio State by 30, so why not? Yeah, but you don't feel pity for Ohio State.
No.
You feel pity for Cincinnati because Cincinnati doesn't get that shot very often. And you look at who it's going to be now, and I just go back to even Georgia State. How does Georgia State compete with Georgia?
Yeah, you don't.
I don't know how do you compete with them?
Yeah, it just doesn't make a compelling TV matchup, and that's again that's potentially the college football playoff committee's biggest role here. Hey, make the TV partners money, while at the same time creating some level of equity across the conversation. Hey, we want the best matchups, but at the same time, we got to follow some of these storylines a little bit. We got to let some of these play out, and that's why I say, cool, Texas State, whoever, the college football playoff committee ultimately just needs to check that box. Let's lay a loss on them, and let's get on to the real business.
Yeah, but I do think your point about the business side of this is really important. I mean, you have to take care of your business partners, and that in college athletics is your TV partners.
Yeah.
If you are not going to satiate ESPN and ABC, which is where the college football playoff lives, I don't. Yeah. You're not doing it right because they're paying you billions of dollars. So they want their 20 million viewers, and you're going to give it to them. And they want their 10 million viewers on Manningcast or Megacast. You're going to give it to them. And it's why Nick Saban's on Pat McAfee's show every Thursday, because you're going to give it to him. You have to make sure that the people who pay your bills are happy. Because if they're not happy, where are you going to end up?
100%.
I think it makes all the sense in the world. But you watch Bama beat Ohio State by 30 points, 52-24. But at that point, you got beat.
Yeah, and
as a P5 beat you down.
Yeah, and at that point, it's okay because then the TV networks can say, yeah, well, Bama was just better.
Huge TV audience, though.
Yeah, Bama just kicked the living hell out of Ohio State. And by the way, again, I'm just going to keep saying this. Bama has a huge following. Ohio State has a huge following. Ohio State's following's pissed off. Bama's following is talking all that junk. It's exactly what TV partners need.
And again, I feel like it comes off as, and I see the comments about how I hate small markets, and I don't. I truly do not. But I think if you're looking at the health of college football, I don't know how you go with 6-6. I 6 conference champions and then 6 at large.
Yeah.
Because that's 2 spots for the G5. And it's probably, I mean, maybe 2 more, if we're being honest. You're probably given 8 P5 and 4 G5 spots. And maybe you're doing that to help your power programs. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. Hans Stoley says G5 playoff champ versus FCS champion would be cool. And people will watch.
Yep.
It's a TV product.
Yeah.
Harry Austin, who's been a member for 3 months. Thank you, Harry. Appreciate you, my guy. Thank you for being here. Love your show, Monty and Jake, despite both of you being way wrong on the college football playoff topic. Here's to another 3 months. And I'm open that my opinion, my opinion is not the only opinion.
Yeah.
I am not right. I'm just convicted in my opinion. I believe in it, and I think it's one of those things that you can't just
And Harry, what's your take? I mean, that's what the show's about, right? I mean, okay, I'm cool if you disagree. I have no issue if you disagree. I just want to know what your take is. I mean, where do you want? And that's really the conversation I think we're trying to have here. Is like, what's the direction of the college football playoff? Where is it going? Because that to me is the one thing in college football, despite realignment / expansion, that you can't mess up. You can't mess the college football playoff up. It needs to be nails every single year because it drives the college football playoff economy, in my opinion. It is what everyone's trying to be. It is the measuring stick. So if you can get it right, I think it just, stokes that fire. But if you get it wrong, that's really going to hurt things.